Thanks to the Conservatives for bringing today's debate on housing. We support the Conservative motion today. We think it's quite focused and concentrates on the need to increase housing supply. It's actually fairly flexible in the suggestions it makes as to how to increase that supply. The Labour amendment follows a particular pattern that we're getting quite used to in the Assembly, in that it basically states that the Welsh Government is doing enough. This is often what we get from government amendments, and of course I appreciate that the Welsh Government is doing things in the field of housing, but the danger, of course, is one of complacency. If we look at the Conservative motion and the Labour amendment together, it is clear that there is a discrepancy between the two different targets for house building. I do think that Labour's target is fairly modest, and that even if it is achieved, it will not address the entirety of the demand for affordable homes in Wales. So we in the UKIP group don't agree fully with the Labour amendment, which today we oppose. I was going to say that the Plaid amendments raise issues with which we partially agree, but then Leanne Wood made a very good case for the need to focus on social housing, which was backed up by statistics. So I think we do need to look at what level of social housing we need to bring into play. Certainly I think there is a need to focus on social housing to a large extent, but I don't think we should necessarily focus on social housing to the exclusion of all else. I think we do need a mixture of affordable new housing. Part of the Plaid amendments do deal at length with the issue of homelessness, which of course is a massive concern. I do think that there are so many elements of that, though, that perhaps those points require another debate to deal with. Now, Labour have a target of 20,000 new affordable homes over a 5-year term, which equals 4,000 homes a year. The Conservatives today state the target, referencing their earlier report, of 100,000 in a 10-year period, which equals 10,000 homes a year. We also have the figures from Dr Alan Holmans, which suggested that Wales might need 12,000 new homes a year. So if Dr Holmans is correct, the Conservatives' target seems more meaningful than the Labour one. The Housing Minister here today will probably agree that no target is really meaningful unless it's achievable, but we do prefer the greater ambition of the Conservative target. Another problem is how to ensure that the homes built actually are affordable. This is a big problem with a lot of private developments. When they come on the market, they simply aren't affordable for many people, and there are also problems with the amount of affordable housing that is initially part of the planning agreement. Sometimes this seems to get overridden in the process of the house builders actually developing their schemes. So that, I think, it does need looking at. That's a planning issue. I think there may be other ways of getting more affordable housing by utilising the private sector. For instance, we need to look more at modular housing, which is relatively cheap to build, can be erected quickly and can help to create jobs. But building these kind of houses does need different skills to traditional housing methods, so we do need to ensure that we have enough skilled people to work on these schemes. I know that the previous Housing Minister, Rebecca Evans, was working to develop this sector, and I hope that her very capable successor will continue with this work. It does require an interactive approach between the Welsh Government, the private sector and further education colleges. We also need to encourage more infill development and small-scale housing developments, which will tend to be attractive not to the large house builders, but rather to the SMEs, which I do think need to play a bigger part in the house-building industry in Wales. We could also do more to encourage brownfield development. There is also a considerable demand for people wanting to build their own homes. According to opinion polls, some 53% of people have expressed an interest in this, and rates of self-building are much higher in some Western European countries than here in Wales, notably Austria, where 80% of houses are self-built. In the UK, the figure is only 7 to 10%. So I don't know if we can do anything in Wales to encourage this part of the housing sector. There are other things we can do to alleviate the of course, yeah.
The problem is land and getting access to land, and that's why you've got a difficulty with the self-build sector.
Yes. Yeah, I appreciate that there probably are difficulties over access to land. I think it's worth looking at, but I understand it is a major challenge. Empty homes are another issue, and there is a measure that local councils can bring in called empty dwelling management orders, which could force the hand of developers who are leaving properties empty for long periods. So these can be used perhaps under some circumstances. There's also the vacant land tax, which I know is pending, and I do await government bringing details of that to the Chamber. Certainly that's a measure that UKIP would probably favour. So there are a variety of measures that could be used. The key factor is that we do end up with significantly more homes in Wales which are affordable.